personally connected to the world.
The Stansberry Show.
I don't know what it is. I got him on every morning.
On Rock 106.9.
330-450-7625 to send a text in the studio. At 9 a.m. this morning, let's rock the bank together. Pass out that. We'll continue those all day. We have been talking a little Super Bowl conspiracy rather, as people think the color scheme of the logo has something to do with it. And I had said, look, I've been working in event planning in and around it for a long time in the radio business. I actually ran a promotions department for a while. And I talked about a couple of events that the stations have done. Like, we put on a huge concert for one of the Cleveland stations last summer, both GAR and MMS. It was 2 days. It was Buzzard Fest the first day, Country Jam the second. We had the logos for those events before we reached out to the bands. We didn't even know what the lineup was going to be. We knew we were going to do it. We knew we were going to be able to get somebody. Here's the logo we need. Long before we knew who was going to be in it. And I don't think it's necessarily crazy that the NFL is looking at their event and going, well, let's get a logo put together. And the color scheme, yeah, a little purple, a little red, and then, oh my God, Ravens, San Francisco 49ers. It's like, I think it's just looking at it and going, I bet these two teams could find themselves in the Super Bowl this year. And if they don't, does anybody really care about the coloring anyway? Once the game is underway, then whatever. Then just use that. I think it's just planning ahead. Right? But I was talking about how I think more people think everything is rigged because of sports gambling. It's exploded. $2 billion in Ohio alone was wagered. Because people who would never bet before are now betting. Because it's legal. It's easy to do on your phone. You don't have to meet a guy. You know what I mean? You don't have to do any of that. You don't got to have that person in your life. You don't got to worry about this person finding out. And I said, I think that's leading to a lot of it. Now, Ben was listening and brought up a great point. He said, well, all of that's true. He goes, but the conversation around sports being rigged is getting louder because of the terrible officiating we've seen. Well, he's not wrong. The officiating in the NFL is so bad, I wrote a rejoiner for this show that says, live from the Hall of Fame city, and just as bad as NFL officiating, the Stansberry Show. Because that's how bad NFL officiating has become. So Ben's right on that. Now, we're getting a little, we're mixing the two things together. Rigging the games and, rigging who's going to be in the Super Bowl, right? Well, I guess they kind of go hand in hand there. But Ben, I think, is right. I think that's a great point, and it's a huge part of the reason why the conversation is as loud as it is, and I didn't mention that, and we probably should. Because, again, more and more people losing games on bad calls think the NFL is in on it. I didn't even bring this up, but 2 months ago, people were telling me that the NFL was rigging it to make sure Travis Kelce was in the Super Bowl because of the Taylor Swift thing. Well, now we find out Taylor might not be able to do it because she's in the Japan part of her tour. And so now people were telling me yesterday, see, they were going to do it for that, but then they found out Taylor's schedule. Oh, you mean the tour schedule that she had to get out to all the venues probably 9 months before the tour kicked off? You mean those event venues that she had booked, paid for, and paid the insurance for, I don't know, probably 6, 9, maybe 12 months before the show shows up in town? Yeah. Do people think you just plan a world tour on a napkin, flying city to city? All right, I guess we'll go there next. All of those venues host other things. You have to make sure it's clear. You have to make sure you have everything ready to go. Like, that is craziness. Craziness. Plus, let's not pretend she does have an off day, Super Bowl Sunday. Let's not pretend her plane can't go from one place to the other. Now, Japan's a long flight. I'll grant you that. But my guess is if 87 is playing in that game, get ready to see T-Swizzle up there in that box. I could be wrong. But I saw the same people telling me, oh my God, they're rigging it because of the Patrick Mahomes thing. Oh, they're rigging it for Travis Kelce. They're just going to put the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. And I swear to God, the same guy in my Twitter mentions, X, sorry, Elon, I can't keep up with all your craziness, at my X, at Stansberry Show, same guy in my mentions. 2 months ago telling me I was stupid because I didn't realize that the NFL was going to rig it to put Travis Kelce in there. I swear to God, was one of the first people to message me over the weekend over the games. Go, see, look, they're rigging it to make sure everybody goes. Look at the logo color. He was the first person to get me on this. And that's what made me scratch my head. I was like, well, wait a minute. I thought you were all in on the Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift conspiracy. Oh, I know what's happening now. You're just in on the conspiracies because they're fun. And conspiracies are fun. Absolutely. Eric asking me, does the color of the logo have anything to do with the city the game was played in? Last year it was Arizona and the color scheme was Southwestern related. So yeah, Eric, I think you're closer, and I think that's, of course, right? Like that's going to be part of logo making for sure. And I didn't bring that up. It's a pretty good point. And there is some of that. That's where that, and people who haven't seen the logo, this is maybe a little too far down this rabbit hole, but in that Kansas City section of that logo, he's right. There's that little red with the pinkish hue kind of running through it, and it's made to look almost like that kind of skyline, right? Of that Arizona skyline, like, wait for it, the Arizona flag on the signs in the state, if you've been there. Like, if it's kind of made to look like that, and Eric is right about that. He's absolutely right about that. I just think it's nuts that, now, I should bring this up too, right? Because people are like, how do you not believe sports is rigged when we've seen an NBA referee write a book about it? Okay, well, I've said, I think Vegas can get to a ref. I think Vegas can get to a player. I think Vegas often gets to players' wives and girlfriends. Hey, what's going on? Hey, tell me what's going on. Hey, what have you heard about the wide receiver? I think they pay for information, and information leads to influence. And do I think, as a matter of fact, do I kind of know, Vegas goes out of their way to try to pay for influence? Sure. I don't think you can pay for end result. I think you can pay for a lean. I don't think you could pay for an end result in a football game. It's one of those sports. Basketball, you can hold up. But anybody who's ever played the game, talking football now, at any level, will tell you, if you don't play at full speed, that's when you get hurt. That's when somebody gets hurt, like for real gets hurt, is when somebody isn't, when you're not playing full speed. And I would agree with that. Having not played the game a whole lot in an organized fashion, I could see that. But trying to do this, trying to do that, next thing you know, you're trying to like hold up a little bit and you find yourself in some trouble. I could easily see that. Logan's asking me, do I think gambling has affected the outcome of games? No, I think I've been saying that all morning, right? I don't think so. I think they pay for a lean, and if they can get it, that's as close as humanly possible. Like, people wanted to tell me that, Baltimore with the point spread and they like mollywopped Houston was proof that it was rigged. I was like, they're like, the bettors lost their ass in that. It's like, guys, your better argument that Vegas rigs games is how close the lines are week in and week out, not the game that's lopsided. By the way, one of the most lopsided Super Bowl lines ever was what? Denver-Seattle, right? Denver-Seattle. Vegas lost their ass on that Super Bowl. So why didn't they rig that one? Is it to throw people off the scent? I got a lot of that yesterday. Well, sometimes they let it go. Because obviously if they rigged them all, it'd be too obvious. Oh. Is that right, Columbo? Is that right? I mean, dude, it just kind of sounds crazy. Somebody has to show me the motive. The NFL has been on a steady increase in ratings and revenue my entire life. All they've done is grow. Any other sport, as a matter of fact, basketball and baseball combined a lot of times don't get the ratings that the NFL does. So if sports rigging was really a thing, wouldn't everybody else be rigging to try to get to the level that the NFL is? Why would the NFL, who has you in a death grip, do this? For what? It could get in the way of the gravy train of money that just comes in through your door without rigging it. So why would you risk it? Now, plenty of people make bad mistakes when they got a lot of money. So, okay, that's not, what I just said isn't rock solid, but it does make some sense, right? Like, if you're an owner in the NFL, and you're like, dude, they give us $50 million, baby. $50 million we get. Before, just to put the games on TV. That's before I sell tickets. That's before I sell nachos. That's before I sell jerseys. That's before I do Taylor Swift themed food at the game. That's before I do any of that. I get $50 million just for being an owner, dog. Why in the hell would they allow you to rig it? What for? They've got your money. And more importantly than that, because this is how they get your money, they have your eyeballs. NFL games are rated through the roof. The Super Bowl is the one game your little sister wants to watch. If you want to tell me they're rigging Monday night games in week 6, that way people watch them, okay. Okay, but rigging the most watched event of the year every year? All right, I guess.
You know what that conniving trickery is called?
The Stansberry Show on Rock 1069.
Shout out to Chris Ryan out of Minerva. Chris won his way into Sum 41. So if you're friends with him, start texting him now. He's got an extra ticket for you. I'll have another set of those for you tomorrow on the program. Now, if Bush is more your thing, we'll get a set of those passed out by the end of this hour on the program. Yeah, my promotions department just loading me down recently with a bunch of great stuff to give out. I like when that happens. You like when that happens. So we'll do those Bush tickets by the end of the hour. All right, I saw another article separating the generations again. And these conversations aren't new. They're like every other conversation. They're a little bit more heightened and louder now because, you know, we all pass out our opinion via socials. I'm not complaining. It's probably a good thing ultimately. But, you know, conversations used to kind of come up. We'd talk about them maybe 90 seconds or whatever, and they'd kind of like just go on and we'd move on to the next thing. Social media, to its credit, can make things kind of hover. And they'll kind of stick around like, no, we're talking about this still. I do think that's a benefit. I don't think we use it as appropriately as we always should, myself included. That's a separate conversation. But I can't tell you even how many times when I go to put a rundown for the show together, I look at it and I'm like, oh, okay, so it's the boomers versus zennials again, right? Here we go. And where you are in your life will or can decide or help you decide how you see things, right? Or what your opinion on something. So I'm told here that Gen Z is prioritizing working to live versus living to work because they have seen the detriments of living to work on the previous generation and the generation before them. To which I will say, yeah, you're complaining about coming into a world where things are that much easier, where you can and do have enough free time to kind of sit around and talk about what could be or what we should do or this and that. When your great-grandfather was working 17 hours in a coal mine with a bird he had to send in there to make sure he didn't die when he went in after him. But by all means, tell me how bad the CEOs are today. I mean, for sure, tell me about that, right? So, like, there's a little bit of that. The other thing is, these conversations are ridiculous. You know what they say, you know what they're really saying here when they say Gen Z prioritizing living or working to live versus the other way around. Really what they're saying is young people are saying, I don't want my life to be all about my work. You said that when you were young too. So did I. Now, ironically, I am solely defined by my work. I don't think most people are. I think a lot of people are. I don't think it's most. But I would have told you I don't want my life to be about my work. And look at what I did to my life. I've made it nothing but my work. Although the last couple of years I've gotten a little bit better about that. But for the bulk of it, I made it about my work. So what am I saying there? Well, what I'm saying is it doesn't matter what you ask Gen Z while they're young. It matters what they end up doing when they're no longer young. Every generation wanted to prioritize working to live. They didn't have the benefit of it being on the horizon for them. I know, you think because everybody showed you 6 memes and the boomers had it so much better than you? All right. Okay. Well, they bought their house. Look at Warren Buffett. Bought his house, $33,000, worth $1.4 million. The value of things rises in 50 years? No. No way, man. Go look at the price of a car when he bought that house versus now. Go look at the price of a sandwich, a candy, any damn thing. Welcome to prices raising. By the way, your parents weren't making enough money when Warren Buffett bought that house to be buying that house. They didn't because they weren't paid the way they are today. That never comes into these conversations. So every generation wants to prioritize working to live versus living to work. My dad used to tell me that all the time. I can hear his voice in my head saying it to me. Sometimes I will tell myself in my house, what would Dean say to you right now? What would Dean be on right now? But the problem is that is one of the few things my father did a poor job of showing me. I say it all the time. My parents didn't tell me that they loved me. They showed me. That's the important part. And they were a great example in a lot of things. But when my dad would tell me, don't live to work, it sounded hypocritical. The man was never home. Ever. Ever. He was in his office grinding away, or at the hospital holding your mother's hand as she was dying from cancer, or going here, working at that soup kitchen, going there, doing that. The man was never home, ever. So I thought to myself, this is do as I say, not as I do. But that's not how life works. I once upon a time told you a story about buying my first cell phone. Radio Shack, dating myself. I came home. I was all happy. I was dancing around. Dad said, what do you have in your hand there, boy? Cell phone. Only cost me $30. Because it was like $30 down, and then like the bill every month was crazy, and I don't know, whatever. And he said to me, they got you to trade your entire life, your freedom and your privacy for $30. And you're dancing around in my living room like you're the one that got a deal. Sue, get in here. We raised an idiot. Like literally, that was my father. And I said, go get a cell phone. What are you talking about? I said, Daniel, I don't need a cell phone. I go 3 places. In my deer stand, in my pulpit, or by your mother's side. That's it. Now fast forward all these years, and I go 3 places. To the golf course, to my studio, or by Jennifer's side. That's it. That's it. So like he could tell me all he wanted. Don't do this. And I know he was just trying to warn me because his life became too much about his work. And he wasn't with his family enough because he was with everybody else's. I understand that there was a little bit of a warning in that. But you can't tell me, you gotta show it to me. That's the way it works. So I see these articles and it's like, no, this is what you think you're going to do. Not what you're going to do. Did you honestly think that people older than you were just like, I'm just gonna keep walking in and working this hard just cause? No, it's because it was what was required of them. Everybody wants to stay home and just hang out with the fam and work on the work-life balance, but that ain't how it works. Decisions are made by those who show up. And so sometimes, man, you gotta just get your big girl pants on, your big boy pants on, and go in and do it. That's what you gotta. I saw another one of these articles. Workers wasted X amount of hours sitting in traffic last year after remote work falls on its head. And everybody's like, see, look at us wasting time sitting in traffic. You being inconvenienced isn't a good enough reason for society and business to run itself into the damn ground. These aren't good arguments. They're not. They are not good arguments. We all want to work to live versus the other way around. But we live in this country, baby. Better heat up that lunch. Eat at your desk, because your replacement is standing over your shoulder right now.
He's a man of many talents, but he doesn't have the talent for keeping quiet.
The Stansberry Show on Rock 106.9.
Welcome back to the Stansberry Show. 9 a.m., let's rock the bank. Pass out 1,000 books. Also do Nutri Tuesday for you as well. Got new stuff from a blues artist I love named Marcus King. And we'll give you some of that. We had been talking about, I read at Business Insider, a site I like, and read, well, daily pretty much. And they're talking about how Gen Z is really trying to, work to live versus live to work. And I remember my dad giving me that warning, and I talked about how he could tell me all he wanted, but all he showed me was working too much. Monkey see, monkey do, man. And I have for sure, in a lot of ways, turned into my father. Not all of them. Sometimes people will ask me, how are you and your father different? And an answer that's not mine that I heard somebody else say about their family, but I'm going to steal it because of how much I like it, is I hope in as few ways as possible. And so I just kind of turned into that, where it was like my work is my passion, And I'm just kind of, too tunnel visioned in that. And we were talking about how Gen Z wants to live a different life. Well, I did too when I was their age. But then I couldn't. Now, there is a difference in what I do versus what a lot of people do, because I love what I do and I'm passionate about it and I want to be doing this. And so the late days I have to be here feel more worth it. And the missing Christmases with the family, that felt worth it at the time. I could see, again, I came in this industry when you could still see jobs on the horizon if you worked hard. I would admit that in the radio business, those are harder to see now than when I came in. I mean, it was 25 years ago, so it's a little bit different, right? And, we've been kind of talking about this. One of the things I didn't mention about it is everybody goes through this, or at least most people do. You earn less in the early part of your career than you do the late. Early, you don't have the experience. You may have got the degree, okay, but you don't have the experience. So we're going to bring you in. We're going to use some trust with you. We're going to help you try to get your feet well in this. For that, I'm not paying you the salary of somebody who's been here 30 years. But then the game in America, baby, is don't make too much money to where they got to fire you while you still got 30 more years to work. And then once you do start making some real money, then avoid being pushed out because you're aging out of the industry. I wasn't planning on talking about this, but we should. If your company today hired a 72-year-old, everybody at that company would be laughing about the hiring practices and what a disaster it is. Don't forget to go vote and pull that lever for one of those two guys. Right? Could never hire them to work where you work. Run the country, though. Amazing. Right? Got it. Like I said, wasn't planning on talking about that. Let's not do it. But I see a lot of this. Nobody plans to live to work. But the younger you are, the more dedicated you have to be. You put a few years in, and then your salary starts to raise. Or at least should. If it's not, then that's a problem with that company, and then that happens all the time too. But I think a lot of times what happens is people enter in the workforce and they think this is going to be their salary forever. Well, it can be, but you can also do things to help yourself increase that salary. Now, it's a fine line, because you don't want to be the guy or the woman who just shows up, does everything, and gets walked on. I've seen plenty of people like that in this industry who thought just being the guy who was there early, raising his hand, taking on all the responsibility was just going to be there forever, but he wasn't. You still have to be valuable in other ways, just then being willing. So there is a fine line. I'm not denying it. I've seen plenty of people get taken advantage of in this industry because they didn't know when to say no. As a matter of fact, I have been taken advantage in this industry because I didn't know when to say no or didn't want to say no. I wanted to be relied upon. It felt good to be relied upon. Again, I think a lot of times people are blaming corporate America for what it is that lives inside of them that comes out while you're working in corporate America. People ain't ready for that conversation yet, though. The CEO is the evil one, not what's living in me, right? Not that I may have some things living in me that make me the kind of person that they want to move around like that. So I think a lot of times people talk about the fairness of stuff, but it's like, well, put a decade in and then talk to me about it. I think that's just how it works. My industry's kind of like that. Radio will not pay you until they have to. That's it. Their job is to get me as cheap as humanly possible. My job is to wrestle every nickel away from their tight-fisted ass that I possibly can. That's how it works. I make a lot more money. Well, you know what's crazy about that? Is salary. I mean, it's more, but it's not a lot more than I made early. It's a little bit more. Now, I was offered a hell of a lot more money than I make right now for a couple of positions, and I chose not to do those. That's on me, not the company. The company backed a garbage truck full of money in my driveway once and was like, here, all you gotta do is keep showing up and doing what you've been doing. There it is, cash that check. And I told them no. That's on me, not the company. They tried to make me that guy, and I didn't want to do it then. I gotta take ownership of that. I do. I think I made the right decision. I love my life. I'm happy here. I want to be here with you. So I love my decision. Most people tell you, oh, that was kind of bonehead. As a matter of fact, my boss, who will tell me to my face, has told me to my face, Dan, I benefit from you being here way more than you do even. And you still made the wrong call. Tells me all the time. Tells me all the time. So a lot of this stuff is on us as people. But the earlier you are, in your career, the less money you're normally going to make. These are standards. It's not necessarily going to be a set rule, but it is kind of the standard. What people are unwilling to do now is be dedicated to that company because the way we talk about companies, like they're all just so bad. And I'm guilty. I've said wildly inflammatory things about this company using their microphone to do it. That is what we would call normally stupid. I'm like, that ain't smart. And it ain't. And it's part of the reason why maybe I haven't been promoted. Maybe when I applied for a job a year and a half ago in this region, they were like, he's perfect for it, but no. So what are you posting on social media that's preventing you from making the money that you want to be making? How much Amazon shopping are you doing at your desk where they know that because they've installed programs on your work PCs to watch everything you're doing and they can calculate exactly how much work you have been doing? Do you work remotely? Did they give you a laptop to do it? Congratulations. Your employee handbook says they have looked at everything on that laptop, that they can watch you live as you're using that laptop. They know what you're doing. Is that leading into the year-end review that didn't go so well? Is that leading into you not getting the $10,000 raise and Susie down the hall did? Is it? It can be. So yeah, some of the entry salaries I don't think are necessarily, quote, fair, whatever the hell that would be in business. But the longer you're in your career, the more valuable you normally become. Now, I said, in America, you got to dodge that bullet of, okay, now I'm too old and they're going to push me out the door. I'm not qualified to do anything here because of how old I am. I guess I'll just go run to be president instead.
The Stansberry Show on Rock 106.9.
I'm going to pass out these Bush tickets here in a moment. That show, August 13th, Jacobs Pavilion, and we'll get you in. You know, we had been talking about the work, you know, offices, jobs, you know, the difference in viewpoints of generations and jobs. I'm told that Gen Z is looking to, you know, work to live versus the other way around. So, well, everybody was. I mean, that's what everybody was looking to do. And you are the younger you are, the more idealistic you are. The younger you are, the more likely you are to believe that your life is going to turn out a certain way. 90% of the guys listening to me right now swore that they were never going to get married and never going to have kids. Not all of them, but a lot of them. Never take me alive, man! How many of you got 3 of them now? Right? Life just kind of starts coming at you at some point. And then things kind of change. And the older you are, you realize, I don't have enough time to sit around and talk about what I would like to be doing. I got to get this done. I got to get on this, right? And so we've been having a little bit of that conversation. And I figured, you know what? Let's kind of switch over to some optimism here. As I have from CNBC, what they're telling me are jobs that are absolutely going to skyrocket right now and in the near future that pay pretty well. They say you can make, you know, about $100,000, if not more, in a lot of these. And they do give us the salary ranges. So we'll take a look. One of these jobs, apparently, that's going to skyrocket now is an artificial intelligence engineer. Apparently, what they do is develop, implement, and train AI models and algorithms. They use programming language to do that, and they create intelligent systems that can perform tasks traditionally requiring a person. Your salary range is between $44,000 and $173,000. Now, the top locations, according to CNBC, for you to get this job are San Francisco, good luck, New York, Washington, D.C., and also the Baltimore area, which is pretty much the suburb of Washington, D.C. Now, again, we talked salary in the previous conversation, right? You enter the workforce in, $44,000, doesn't sound like a lot because it ain't, and then $173,000. Now, again, they're using, you know, averages here and this and that. But that's what an artificial intelligence engineer will do and get paid, you know, until you make yourself replaceable by the technology you're giving them. A job recruiter. You source and evaluate and help hire qualified candidates for open roles with organizations. I will say, as more people have moved to the app-based hiring system, I'm willing to bet a job recruiter is absolutely going to skyrocket in the next couple of years because of how bad some of those programs can be. The salary range is $25,000 to $93,000. If you're making $25,000 as a job recruiter, you need to find yourself another job. The top locations hiring for a job recruiter right now are Dallas, New York, LA, Washington, D.C., and the Baltimore area, although I don't know why. What you're doing is scouring the best interview candidates. You can do that over Zoom. You can check the resumes online. You can do all of that. To me, that seems like a job that people could easily do remotely. I don't think you necessarily even need to meet in person all of the people you're trying to place, as a lot of times what you're trying to do is place another CEO, and they're not going to meet with you. Like, that isn't going to happen, right? Also, artificial intelligence consultant, skyrocketing right now, they say. What they do is advise organizations on the implementation of AI technologies in their business operations and product offerings. Your salary range is about 60 to 151, and again, San Francisco, the top hiring city. Good freaking luck. They can't even keep fast food restaurants in there anymore. About 3 times a month, you'll see some nice lady trying to report the news about how bad the crime's gotten in San Francisco, and her car and the news truck gets broken into as they're doing the damn story live on the air. Yeah, by all means, keep offering people jobs in that hellhole. It ain't happening. Like, it ain't happening. Vice President of Diversity and Inclusion. Well, 90% of you could never get this job. But Vice Presidents of Diversity and Inclusion cultivate inclusive workplaces through the design and implementation of policies relating to diversity, equity, and inclusion within an organization. You have heard this referred to as DEI, or a lot of people call it DIE now, but the salary range is between $43,000 and $277,000. I do know people who hired a Vice President of Diversity and Inclusion for their company, and sure enough, you hired somebody to tell you you have problems in your company. Guess what? Their job is useless unless they tell you you have problems in your company. So, like, they're going to find the problem whether you have one or not. So we'll continue here. Advanced practice provider. Advanced practice providers are licensed medical providers, such as a physician's assistant or a nurse practitioner, and you will perform primary care services for patients, including assessing lab results, delivering diagnosis, and administering treatment plans. You'll start at about 39, cap out at about 166, in Kansas City, Austin, and Chicago are places you could go to do that. My guess is, and this is purely just a guess, is that Kansas City is the best cost of living as compared to Austin, which has skyrocketed in the cost of living because everybody's turned it into San Francisco South, and Chicago, which I know to be, having had friends who work in the radio business there, that is an expensive place to live. Chicago, for sure. I've been running you through some of the jobs that are on the rise over the next couple of years, because so much conversation is about how many jobs are going to be lost. This list is a little bit longer than this, so we'll continue to look at it next on the Stansberry Show. But before we do that, let's get you into Bush. That show's August 13th, Jacobs Pavilion, AEG.com if you would like to pick up some tickets, or you could win your way in with me right now. I'll take caller 15 at 330-450-7625. Toll free at 800-243-7625 on those Bush tickets, and right back with more Stansberry Show next. Hang on.
Live from the Hall of Fame City, and just as bad as NFL officiating, the Stansberry Show on Rock 106.9.
We just saw that Monday Night Raw, the WWE product, going to have a new home at Netflix. That apparently in 2025. I've already slated this as one of the conversations you and I will have tomorrow on the program. I'm going to do a little bit more reading, deep diving. We'll try to figure this out. Because I thought, if memory serves, that the WWE brand had been pretty tight in bed with Peacock, right? Is where a lot of that stuff was. I say it all the time. I'm not the biggest wrestling fan, but I know a lot of people who listen to the program, listen to rock stations, listen to radio stations in general. It's a very popular thing. So I try to stay up on it as much as I can. I'll watch like the Super Bowl of it, WrestleMania, that kind of thing. I'm not week in and week out guy. That's okay, right? We don't have to all love the same things. But I try to keep, my eyes and ears on what's going around that industry, as a lot of people do, in fact, love it. So we'll talk a little bit more about that tomorrow. Streaming services, price hikes are going to be coming to Netflix for sure. We'll talk about all that. We had been talking about jobs that are going to be in high demand now and in the near future. We already ran you through artificial intelligence engineer, recruiter, artificial intelligence consultant, vice president of diversity and inclusion, DEI directors. We also talked about an advanced practice provider.